Can you give us an example of an industry or someone that you've recently lent money to that had such a quick turnaround that really changed whether or not the business was going to keep going or whether it was going to struggle?
We've just recently done one where a guy works in the mines and he needed to buy some equipment. It was a water truck. We were able to do that whilst he organised the refinance of his house. So typically people have got the equity to be able to go to the bank and get the money, but there's just a timing issue that's going to take, he didn't have 6 weeks to wait. Or there's a problem with a tax debt that the bank's not going to lend to them until the tax debt is dealt with. We can deal with the tax debt for them, which then allows them back into the bank to do the refinance. We've done a fair bit of tax debt stuff lately that has just allowed people to be able to move on. So people will have substantial equity in their property, and they've been also able to get that interest refunded. And we all know now that the interest isn't a deduction anymore for your business, where the interest that you're paying to Strive will be a tax deduction. It's a company loan, so any costs in interest are then deductible through your business. We do stuff where we can settle houses for people. Maybe the bank is not going to be able to do it in time, so we've been able to save deposits. If someone's paid a deposit on a house of $200,000 and they're going to lose that because it doesn't settle on time, we're able to help out there.
And even after that debt's been paid out, so the ATO are charging just over 10.95% interest compounded daily on a debt. But after you've paid out that debt, if there's grounds, we can still come back and do an application to get rid of that interest. So often people don't realise that once the debt's gone, they can still recover the interest that they've paid over the period of that debt if there's the right grounds to do that. So that's sort of another tool that a lot of businesses can use once you've come in and paid off that debt to absolutely help increase cash flow, help pay that debt back as well. It's a bit like an insurance policy. People talk about the cost of doing business and the cost of borrowing and the cost, even we get asked all the time, the cost for us to put people into a payment plan. And I say that cost is a bit like insurance. It's protection. Without being in a payment plan and when you have outstanding debt, the ATO can do credit reporting. We're seeing a huge amount of Garnishee notices being issued when you're not in a payment plan, which means that the ATO can take money out of your bank account without you knowing, which can have huge impact. So a lot of this is around the cost of doing business. I'm assuming that's something that comes up, it often comes up with private lenders, that your rates are very different to if I walked into ANZ today. But I see that as it's a cost of doing business and the protection that it gives.
Yeah, they are to some degree, but it is actually getting cheaper and cheaper just with the amount of people that are now in the market. So you're going to be looking at somewhere around 20% per annum. But again, if you're only doing it for 6 months, where you're talking about 10%. So it's not really that much more expensive than what the ATO is already charging you. And as I say, the key to our stuff is getting people back into their business earning money, because every night that you're sitting around trying to or stressing about this or trying to sort this out, or you're on the phone to the ATO yourself trying to do it all day, you're not actually productive within your business. And when you're not productive within your business, you're not actually making any money and you're going backwards at a rate of knot. Where if you can just clean it all up, you can actually move on with life and get back to doing what you do best, which is, if it's a plumber, you need to be out servicing properties. If it's a developer, you need to be doing the next development. If you're a builder, you need to be on site making sure you guys are working and you're finishing stuff on time. So it's really about solving a problem for someone that allows them to get back in and then get back doing what they do best.
There was I think a philosophy a few years ago and the older generation in some respects that the ATO was a cheap, easy small business bank. And that's just not the case anymore. When you actually look at what it costs you, you look at the risks of having outstanding debt. And the ATO, I think, have brought a whole heap of recovery measures into place to really change that mindset, that they're not there as a cheap, easy small business bank. You can't just use debt like you were talking about an overdraft. You can't just leave debt sitting with the ATO as an overdraft if you're not in a payment plan, you're not paying it back. And I think that's sort of why we're seeing some of these legal changes or legislative changes around the interest not being deductible anymore, to really change that mindset that you need to pay the debt back. You've got to be in a payment plan. You can't ignore it. You can't worry about it later. I often talk about eating the frog. It really is the case that you have to face it head on, because the consequences of not dealing with it are huge.